I had to literally drop my hand off. Okay.
Andrew Live. Hi, good evening. Well, hi everyone. We are so happy to be with you at this point in time. It's just been a wonderful day. And we have the lovely Christine Brooke with us this evening. Our co-host, I missed her last week immensely. And I know you missed her too. So I am so happy that she is on the program with us this evening. And I'm Beverly Briggs, your host. And with us this evening, we have a special guest. Now, this special guest is a wonderful, gifted, transformational life coach. She's a motivating speaker under Les Brown, and she also studied for 6 months under John Tallarico, his program Thinking into Results. It's a program, the mindset coaching program for leadership. She is a business owner, founder, CEO of the Flying Chameleon LLC. She's a proud resident from Duarte. Tell me if
That's
I'm
right.
pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah,
CA,
Duarte.
the city of hope. She's a human first. Well, if you all was wondering, we do have another human with us here on the chat. She's a wonderful wife and a fantastic mother and friend. From victim to champion. And last but not least, she's Mama's and Dada's gracious gift of God, from God. We have none other than the beautiful Joanna Clear. Yes, Joanna Clear with us. And I told her, I would be saying Joanna Clear, Flyer, Clear. But
Flyer,
girl, we're just
flyer.
gonna have a wonderful time this evening. And
Yes.
Joanna, we are glad to have you on with us this evening. Or some places it's morning or night, whatever time it is. We are just happy to have you on with us.
Thank you.
So I just want to chat a little bit, about the weekend, the beginning of the week, just before we come in, just a little easy breezy chat. Christine, how was your weekend? How was your week? Tell us, talk to us, tell us how it is. It was.
Right? It was great. I got to spend time with my girls and some family, and it was a good weekend. What about you, Joanna?
Well,
It was great.
yes.
I made brunch for my caregiver that was a caregiver for my father-in-law, and then I watched a movie with my sister-in-law and spent some time with my kids. And I went for a hike, so we had a good time.
Nice.
Oh,
What about you,
I'm jealous. And
Beverly?
this is the second time she made us jealous for the evening because where did you tell us you are coming from? Where, where,
Yeah,
where did you tell us
I
you
was
are coming
coming
from?
from Laguna Beach. It's about an hour away from where I am right now, which I'm in Burbank, California, which is near Hollywood,
Mhm.
LA area. I just came from the beach. We went. It was like a hike because we were going through the hills and down to the beach, and we got some really good shots. So if you ever want to go on my Facebook page, I did some live Joanna Bricker Clyer. So I
Okay.
got some live in there, and you can just check that out. Kind of cool.
Nice.
Okay.
I love
Yes,
California.
guys.
It's a
She
beautiful
sends
state.
me pictures. She sends me pictures, and I take a bath in them. My mind is. I have a good imagination, so I have a good bath in those pictures that she sent me with. So, Joanna, just speak to us. Tell us, elaborate on what you do for us.
Okay, so what I do right now is actually part time. I'm a grocery clerk worker. I've done that for about 31 years. I've been a cashier in the front line during the COVID, which has been challenging,
Mhm.
Thank you.
stressful. Thank you. Very stressful, very challenging. I'm an empath, so it was very hard to watch people go through a lot of suffering, loss of jobs, just going, well, the first part was the toilet paper, the toilet paper, no rubbing alcohol, and it was very stressful. So I do that part-time. The second thing I do is right now I'm helping 2 senior citizen men with their integrity for the end of their life, and I'm their confidant. So they would share, it's kind of like a life coaching. They would share their secrets, what they did that they felt bad about in their life younger. And I kind of do that psychological stage, integrity versus despair. It's an Erickson stage of development, and it's ages 65 and up. I've done this with my dad, a man named Bob Guth, and I'm doing it with 2 more 72 and 75-year-old men. I also have helped about 5 or 6 women leave relationships, divorcing through their separation with children. So that is my niche for the life coaching. And I just signed up to be a board member for the House of Helping Hands, and we help rehabilitate with work program and work job placement for domestic violence victims.
Okay. All right.
So I'm kind of doing that too, writing chapters in people's books, writing my own, just a lot of activities.
Yes, you have a lot going on. So in your bio, we have that you were a victim and now you are a champion. So just give us just a little of your background.
Okay, so as a child, I lived in a loving home, very strict, religious, conservative home. We were Sabbatarians, but we were not Jewish. So I did that. My dad was a child of domestic violence himself, and he was in Vietnam and Korea, so he was a vet, and so he had a lot of PTSD, which I've learned more about later, more recently. And my mother was 17 when they got married. When he was 23, she was 17, and she did not know of his issues. They wrote letters for a couple of years, so they married. But they, throughout the years, because of my dad's PTSD and alcoholism, he would have violent outbursts when he would get stressed out. And so I experienced that throughout my life till I was 15 years old, an occasional bout of abuse. And my mom was removed from the house at some point, and my dad stopped hitting her, and they reunited. My dad got counseling, they got counseling, and they stayed together, married 41 years before he passed away. So I've experienced a lot of domestic violence. So when I was a kid, I usually get triggered by anybody raising their voice, or I'm very sensitive to that type of thing, any kind of conflict or whatever. So that's pretty much my background. But to go from that to championing is facing the fears, facing the demons, and pushing through old paradigms and being brave. That's where the champion comes in, and having courage. So it's a process.
Yes. Do you want to share with us what are some of the paradigms that you had to push through? What are some of the challenges you had?
Well, because my dad was an alcoholic and I was a child of domestic violence, I suffered from at one point, in 2014, I was diagnosed with major depression and bipolar disorder, and I had alcoholism as well. So I had through life, the stresses would add up, and then it would manifest in stress and PTSD like my father. But I had a different personality where I didn't act out on people. I just kind of went inward with it. And so I kind of would rather hurt myself than hurt others. So it caused sadness, depression went inward, and then it went into depression and stuffing and alcoholism. So it's been an interesting, and then I make the best of a bad situation all the time. So it set me up for just fighting having courage and being brave, and just when an obstacle comes up, just acknowledge it, be aware of it, and face it, and get help for it.
Joanna, what was the moment that you had your moment where you're like, aha, I don't have to be a victim of this. I'm going to be a champion.
Well, I had worked 24 years in one store location, and then I was transferred in 2013. And when I went to the new location, there was a coworker. My coworker was talking mean to me. She was toxic and was bullying me. And then I went to my superior and asked for help with that, and he didn't know how to deal with that. And so I was a victim of her bullying, and I didn't want to leave because if I switched with somebody, they would have to deal with it.
Right.
So I took it instead. And I made the best of it. That's why I ended up in rehab in 2014, because I had literally my disease had gotten worse with the added stress. So I would get triggered at my job, and then I left there about 2 years ago, and looking back, I realized at that point that I was taking responsibility for other people's problems and letting it happen and taking it. And so you become a champion because you finally can. I got removed. No, I didn't actually remove myself. I got removed because I tried to fight. I got letters, and I tried to get them and hold them accountable and responsible, and it was political. And so I found things out about them, and they actually transferred me out.
Okay.
Now, were you happy with that? I mean, like, when they transferred you out, do you feel like it was because you were standing up for yourself, or did they find you to be, like, were they?
Yeah, I was kind of a nuisance to them because they wanted to stay in that problem, and they didn't want to address it.
Right.
And when it comes to corporations, the management will not, and I'm union, so the management will not protect you. The management, that's why you're union, because management or corporations will take advantage of workers. And so I've been with the company for 31 years, so at that point, the union actually has been weakened. They do not have their own legal team. And so if you wanted to do something, I wasn't well enough emotionally. I was deep in my alcoholism. I tried to fight, but I didn't have it in me to finish the job, pretty much.
Got you.
So,
and did you find that healing to walk away, or?
I talked to I talked to my sister about it, and she told me, Joanna, you have so many years in, you don't want to blacklist yourself. They're not going to do what's right because of the politics of it. They want to protect themselves. They want their jobs. They want things to stay the way they are. And you're just making waves that aren't going to be fixed. And so it's not your problem, and you have to walk away. It's just like leaving a bad marriage, right?
Right.
You're just like, well, it's either I stay there and I lose myself and I end up killing myself with drugs, alcohol, or suicide, or I just leave, And so there's just the same scenario there that it was at my own home growing up, and I realized that once I transferred out of the trauma situation. Yeah, there was a lot of learning that happened once I left, because it was like leaving an abusive spouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they were just triggering me.
Yeah.
What's that?
And they were just triggering me, and the brave that I had was just taking it. I was so brave, I was taking it, and I was making the best of it.
And part of that was you were so comfortable with tolerating being uncomfortable. Like sometimes when we go through abuse or some type of trauma, we get so used to the negativity or that bad thing and that bad feeling that it's hard to even give that up and say, I can think differently, I can feel differently, I can feel better, I don't deserve to be uncomfortable all the time. And I commend you for getting up and walking away and saying that you are important and that you needed to take care of yourself in that moment.
Thank you. Going back, actually, it happened to me really bad, and then someone else got the same treatment when I was removed from that position in the same store. I helped her. She ended up getting a transfer, and she ended up getting out, and she ended up getting promotion. And I helped her, but I never got help directly.
Wow. But you were able to help someone else.
That's correct. So I took that and I helped somebody else. Yes.
Good job, Joanna.
That's how I handled that.
And today, that's what you do. Today, that's what you do, right? You do coaching.
Oh, yes. Part-time, and then I went to life coaching school, and I just started investing in myself, and I just said, you know what, even this year, we can't stay in that victim space.
Right. Sometimes we do not need Sometimes we do not need promotion under persons, but we need promotions in our own space where we can do what we were born to do, what we were created to do, and follow our purpose. So you may not have had someone to help you to get promoted in that business, but today you have your own business. Today you have your own coaching business, and you are thriving. Okay, so week before last week, we had a special guest with us, and that was Dr. Clark. Today, he is joining us once again.
Yay!
Yay!
Yes.
Is he on now? There he is.
Yeah.
Hello, Doctor.
Hi, Doc.
Hi. So I will join as you, because I'm just coming in because I had another engagement, and so I'll join as you continue your discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're just really about to start the discussion for the evening. So we started a conversation on abuse, and we want to continue it this evening. This evening, we want to speak about unmasking abusers. We find that it is easy just to sit back and do what is necessary to survive, rather than deal with the underlying and the core things that are affecting us as humanity. And one of the things that are affecting us greatly, we have 3 women on this chat right now, this forum, and all 3 of us have been victims of abuse, now victors. And we are just 3. The statistic is 3 out of 5 women are abused. And there are a lot of men who are abused also. So we would like to go into the mind of the abusers tonight. We want to unmask the mind of an abuser. So we want to start with Doc. Doc?
Yes, I'm listening.
Yes. Can you start us off with the information on unmasking the abusers?
Yes, sure. Just a minute. I'm just trying to get my thing. Well, what is so very interesting is that there is no one reason why men are not, let's not say men, a person is abusive. Okay? It is no one reason why an individual becomes abusive, right? So let's start with that, just in case someone thinks that there is a particular, one reason. Now, because you have situations in which the abuser has grown up in an environment in which he has low self-esteem. He has low self-esteem. He has been, in cases, sometimes they've been a victim of abuse themselves. Okay. You also have situations in which they have witnessed abuse in their family. They have never really processed that, and they replicate the model of the abuse that they saw in their homes. So,
Okay.
and I can go on and on. So there's no silver bullet to say, I shoot this bullet is going to take abuse away, because individuals come from different backgrounds, and these backgrounds influence the kind of persons they are. Now, one of the interesting things that I can tell you, there was some research done, it was 2 years ago, and it was a Caribbean Studies conference um, in what in the Latin American countries. It'll come to me in a minute. And what was discovered is that you had educated Black women from the Caribbean working in with good jobs, good salaries, and they had husbands or partners who abused them. So here you are, you're working hard, you're bringing home the bucks. He's at home. He has a job that isn't paying him the same as as you're earning, and living is good, but you're subjected to abuse. So that's what I'm saying. So you to unmask the abuser, you take one mask off and there's another. So it's multi-layered. The mask that abusers wear, and that's why when you are treating someone who has engaged in abusive behavior, you have to deal with several presentations of that person before you can really make serious impact. You have to go back in the family. You have to go back in nature of the relationships with his parents. You have to go back in his thought processes. What is it that drives him? What is it that he wants? What does abuse do for him? How does he feel after he's completed this abusive behavior? Does he feel fulfilled? I mean, there's just, so you have to go and really remove layer after layer to get to where this person is in his own emotional state. So and I'm sure that individuals who have experienced that can tell you. And then you have a situation where afterwards they're so forgiving, they're so sweet, they're so loving. They have this sort of personality challenges, and then you'd be like, bring you flowers and gifts, and they're apologetic and stuff like that. And you then think, well, okay, this is just a thing, he'll change. And the next time it happens in another way that you didn't expect, and you said, but what did I do? Why did you do that? Why did you hit me? What did I do? What did I say? So sometimes you don't even have to say anything or do anything. So it is we call it an etiological complex. There's several elements in that when we attempt to unmask the abuser. That's my opening salvo.
Wow. Yes. Hi to Crystal James from Arizona. It's so wonderful to have you, Lavdeen, with us. Welcome to Real Talk. Yes, Joanna, were you going to say something?
Yes, doctor, everything that you are saying is correct. I spent 12 years from the time at 15 years old, from the time my dad stopped hitting. I had 12 years to go into his space to try to get to know him. Because the hitting had stopped, I was able to take 12 years before he died and build a trust. I made him feel safe.
Yeah.
I made him feel valued. I loved him for who he was, and he never had that.
Yes.
And I was able to, at the end of his life during hospice, hear everything that he experienced while he was hitting his own children. I experienced his stories in our kitchen that I grew up in. He was very remorseful about what he did once he stopped abusing and got help. I felt really bad for him because the police had come a few times early on and they didn't take him away. And he was telling me when he was 64 years old, right before he died, I wish they would have taken me to jail. I deserved to go there. He was at the end of his life, and I was able to work with him for 12 years and love him, and he loved me, to be able to open up enough to share the ugly that he did and how he was sobbing in the kitchen, upset about what he did, and he felt so bad.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question with that because for the doctor, because and I guess this is so for the doctor, at what point is it healthy for a child to break off a relationship with a parent and say it's not even for my own health, my own sanity, it's not worth mending the relationship? Or at what point do you say I can forgive? Like, what are the things that you need to look for, if you can be in Joanna's shoes and mend that relationship with your abuser? What types of things should they have done in order to even go there? Or versus breaking it off?
Yeah, all right. Now, there's no easy answer. Let me explain to you why I say that. If your your mom is being abused, and you go in to help your mom, and then you get it as well, you get abused as well. That happens pretty often. You develop a hatred for this person who is abusing your mom and who is abusing you. And that hatred is also compounded by a sense of fear. Okay. Because you're fearful for your mom, you're fearful for yourself, and if you have siblings, you're also fearful for your siblings. Okay. And so you try to acquiesce. That's the person. You try to create normality. You try to be protective of your siblings. You try to be protective of your mom. You try all of these different techniques or strategies to bring some sense of normality in the home. But if you are dependent on your dad for survival, it's much, much more difficult. Now, the interesting thing is that if you go to your auntie or your uncle, they'll very rarely they'll believe you, because these abusers are very, very good at covering up things. So it's a long process. Yeah, it's a long process until you get to a level of maturity where you say, okay, I've had enough. I can't survive this. You will work out all kinds of strategies with your mom to be free of it, to believe and whatever. But moms are very resilient, and for some reason, they think about the family, and they want to keep the family intact. And they absorb a lot of abuse just to try and keep, to protect the children from the abuse that's taking place. I I'm just about to start a chapter, which is going to be very provocative. The chapter is entitled Domestic Abuse in the Church.
Mm.
Domestic abuse in the church. And for those women who are in church and they're being abused by their husbands, it's even worse. It is even worse because your support is very, very thin, because the people in the church will always be trying to get you to say, let's pray about it. Let's give him a chance. God will change him. So coming back to the central question is, when do you leave? When do you get to that point where you said, I've had enough? I've had enough. And from my preliminary chatting with some people, they go through long periods. And I know one case is only when this person experienced physical injury where they had to go to the hospital, and they felt and their life was threatened, that they had a wake-up call, so to speak. And they then thought about, well, no, I definitely have to leave. So it is not an easy thing for someone to, a young person to just leave and say, look, I'm going to have nothing to do with that. I'm just going to walk out like that. Where are you going to go? How are you going to survive?
Exactly.
And very often, sometimes you walk out and then you find yourself in another abusive relationship with some other guy or some other person that promised you everything is going to be all right, and only to find yourself re-abused, if you could imagine what I'm trying to say. Reinfected by the same behavior by someone else.
And it is truly a complex situation.
It is.
Abusers are very crafty. Just yesterday, I was speaking with someone, and we were speaking on the topic of abuse. And they were telling me about a story of a young child, a young girl who was abused by a close relative. And when she reported it, they arrested him. But I'm not sure if he came out on bail or what it was, but the villagers, they killed him. And she was so devastated by that, because she did not hate the person. What abusers does, one is either they are persons who are very close to the children, a father and uncle, who have the trust. That child loved them, they cause them to love them deeply, so that to go and tell someone or to leave this situation, you as a person, as a child, feel guilty of leaving that situation, because this is someone that you love. This is someone that you care about. And even those persons who are not close relatives will find that they groom the children, persons who are pedophiles, they groom the children. They cause them to trust them and to love them before they commit the act, because they know that in a child's mind, once a child loves you, once a child thinks highly of you, it is very hard for a child to go against you, because they would always feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
One of the things about abusers, they are very insecure. Something Doc touched on earlier. They are very insecure, and so they use their insecurity, and they find persons who are also insecure. They do not look for strong persons. They look for someone who they know have been abused, and hopefully they are victims still, or they would see that they are victims still, and they would capitalize on that. Can we talk to that?
Okay, you want me to speak to it, or is it directed to the other members of the team?
It's directed to anybody. Anybody.
Okay, all right. Good.
We are having a
Yeah, I don't want to
discussion, all of
dominate.
us.
I don't want to dominate the conversation.
You're the doctor, though.
No, we're sharing ideas. We're sharing. We're sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go back to your chapter, Doctor. Everything
Yes.
that you talked about the church and the wife and the hitting and the beating and the secrets, that was my story.
Yeah.
My mom ended up with black eye at church, and she had to wear glasses, and nothing was talked about. It was like crazy at home, and then we go to church and we pretend like nothing was going on.
Right.
And it was exactly my story, so I thought I'd share that. And you can't leave. I have 3 sisters. I did have a sister that was 18 and got married really young to leave, and that happens a lot too.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
For me, I had an emotionally abusive marriage when I was young. And for me, I dealt with it for my entire marriage, which was a year. But it was a short marriage because of everything that I went through. And luckily, I knew that it was not something that I was supposed to be dealing with. But part of me was like, okay, is this normal in early marriage? And, you do question for a while, like, what is normal? Like, because when it's your first marriage, you don't know, is this what it's supposed to be like? Am I supposed to be talked down to? Is this what I'm going to have to endure forever? And, I finally made the decision to say, you know what, that's the last straw. I'm not taking this, and I had signs of it becoming physically abusive. And it eventually did get to that point during our divorce. But I don't know. Was it my youth that I don't know.
Was it?
My youth? Was it because I was young? But I don't think that even now I would stay long. I don't know if it's just who I am in me that I'm like, I don't know, is it the fight or flight? And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to fight while I'm fleeing. I don't know.
Well, I think me personally, in my situation, I'm not a doctor, but in my situation, I was attracted to what was familiar to me.
Yep.
My dad and my husband, my dad had a really awful background, what you explained early on when you first hopped on, Doctor. But my husband did not have the extreme abuse. He did not have that background. I think that there was disrespect with his parents, and I think that there was mistreatment, but it wasn't talked about. I think there's also verbal in there. I think in their generation, he passed away a year ago, and he was 81. So I think in my previous generation, I think a lot of the men it was just something they did, was disrespect the woman. And they were trained to do that through the generations.
Yeah.
And they were trained to treat their mate a certain way because of their parents, as you said in the beginning. So that's been my experience with myself.
I wonder if it's also generationally abusive families create abusive families, because I don't think everybody has, been verbally abusive or physically abusive because they were in that generation. But generationally, I feel like it was more accepted. And from stories that I hear, people in that generation, you had men going to work, coming back, abusing their wives, and people closing the door on someone because they believed in the institution of marriage. But whether it was good or bad, but it was that institution of marriage, because more men were going to work and women were dependent on the man, but not necessarily that they were okay with the abuse.
Yeah. And then when you add the church to the mix, it makes it even more toxic, because one is till death us do part.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a bit of an oxymoron. So deaf us do part. That's one. And the two is that there is a lot of scriptural evidence or quotations and verses in the Bible that are manipulated by clergymen and other subscribers in the church to keep you in that state of bondage. And I'm thinking of some of the very conservative religious belief systems that say, you can't leave. I mean, who are you going to get to support you leaving? Who are you going to
Right.
get? Can you go to the pastor? I mean, first of all, you are reluctant to complain because that might only result in another beating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you go on, who do you complain? Do you complain to the pastor? The pastor then calls him in and says, let's say he calls him in and he says, well, Mary Jane said that you all had, that you were abusing her. He said, no, look, Mary Jane, I tell her to do things and she's very stubborn and she talks back a lot. Well, of course, the pastor is going to find some agreement with him, that because remember, you're supposed to be the helpmeet. You're supposed to do what you're told. You're supposed to be beholden to the man. Okay, now,
Right.
now the fact that you are going to think that you're on the same level, you're not going to get anyone in the church to believe that. It's only now that we get to the point where pastors are saying, where people are saying, this is unacceptable. There is no way that you can condone that behavior. But I tell you,
Right.
without fear or favor and calling names, I discussed this, my intention for this book chapter, and a prominent clergyman said to me, Dr. Clark, what you must understand is this, that, in our church, we have, and so he started with this apologetic tone of voice, and we have had situations where the women go to the pastor that oversees the pastors and complain about what her husband is doing. And of course that just give him a tap on his wrist and says, now come on, chap, you just fall in line, just do the right thing, don't treat your wife like that. Well, what that doesn't make any difference. He goes home and he says, he gives you another beating, so you're trying to embarrass me and shame me in the church. Well, which wife wants to do that and to her husband and to her family to be ostracized? So it is very, very difficult for women to get the support from within the church. But I mean, I'm talking about the church, but generally, it's very difficult. That's why they say that you need to have, if you want to escape, you need to plan it. You need to plan it. You need to have it planned. You know where to go, who to contact, who's going to support you. You can't just leave because you set up getting beaten. Where are you going to go? And the irony of it all is that we have had situations where we have taken abusive women and we have put them in sheltered accommodation. And they still are talking to the abusive partner on the phone. They tell him where they are.
Oh gosh.
He comes and he sympathizes, and the next thing you know, they leave and they go back with him. So that's what I say. It is really it's a community effort. It's a state effort or government effort. It's a church effort. You have to have it. We should start it also in the schools to sensitize children. So it's a whole big process if we really want to get a grip to this thing called abusive behavior. Because abusive behavior just doesn't start like that. It's a process. It's a process. Look at the guys who bully, the bullies in school. Why do they bully? Why do they bully other kids? is that the nursery bred for abusers? I don't know, but surely we could have a longitudinal study and see, okay, so you and you were bullies in school. Let's track you and see how you developed and how you developed into your teenage years and your young adult years. How did you? Let's see how you manage yourself. Were you able to self-regulate, or you reacted badly when someone said something about you, or you felt slighted when you didn't get your own way?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as a grocery worker for 31 years with the public, so I don't really have to have a study for that. I see a lot of older men throwing fits if they're not happy, and they will. I've had on a few occasions, I've had them verbally get aggressive with me behind the cashier, behind the cashier stand. And I had one not that long ago, probably about a year ago, who yelled at me because he goes, "Where's your help? Where are they? I want this. I want that. I want a paper bag." And I actually started getting a voice about 2 or 3 years ago, and I said, "Sir, it is not okay for you to talk to me like that. I am a human being with feelings. And if you want a paper bag, say please." He calmed right down. What's happened is the behaviors have been allowed to continue from the time they're a boy till they are a senior citizen. And no one has told them to sit down and fold their hands. No one has disciplined them and said, no, it's not okay.
That's where, I'm sorry to jump in.
No,
that's
please.
where, bullying, there's a thing here in the United States called the Bully Side Project. And they talk about, they have a play to kind of show you all of these kids that have died from suicide because of bullying. And what you see is there are the bullies, and the bullies usually have a background story where they might have been abused at home, whether they were a boy or a girl, they're bullying, and they have their backstory. But then you also have all of the other students that stood around and watched and didn't say anything. And you have teachers and other leadership in schools and in the community that watch it and witness it, and they don't say anything. And then you have the victims that, they may try to stand up, but then when they do, sometimes it becomes worse. And, parents that don't jump in, it's this amalgamation of all of these different facets of bullying and abuse, and it all starts from, Joanna, you know what I'm talking about when I say the mindset and the paradigms that we create in young children, that they're seeing at home, and they're hearing and witnessing and feeling these feelings that they have. They're taking it and putting those actions out into the world for other people to feel what they feel. And then how do we stop that and say it's not okay when we have all these facets that are looking the other way?
Yeah, in 2014, I at my place of work, I asked for help. I asked for help from my superior, and he did nothing. He did not want to get involved. He did not want his job to be in jeopardy. He was afraid to even address it. He did not want to protect the innocent person that was me. Because of he did not want to change his job. He didn't want to change anything he was selfish and afraid. And so I'm 50 years old, and I'm still dealing with this problem of my parents' generational stuff. And it's very upsetting. I'm even still doing it in my own marriage. I have to learn how to say no. It's not okay for you to talk to me like that. And I am becoming brave, and I'm making choices to say no, it's not okay. And if you talk to me like that, even my husband raised his voice at me now, just within the last couple weeks. Okay, so it's respect from him to me, from me to him. If I am raised knowing respect by my parents and he's not raised knowing respect from his parents, we have a problem. And that's what I'm facing right now. My husband's a good person. He just needs what those different layers you're talking about, doctor.
Yeah.
That's what my husband needs. He needs help.
Yeah.
He needs help with his anger. He needs help. No one ever addressed it because the fathers were allowed to act that way and get away with it.
Yeah.
Well, Joanna, and God has placed it within your heart to be a life coach, but sitting in an abusive marriage, hoping to help a person most of the times does not help the person. It really don't.
Right.
It actually enables them to continue their behavior. But even in you speaking about the way that he speaks to you, we have the viewer, Crystal, and she's talking about another type of abuse, because we have been really focusing on domestic violence, but then there is verbal abuse and there is emotional abuse. And I don't know. For me, I say, beat me any day. I used to tell my parents and them, you know what? Beat me, don't bawl at me. Words cut. It's cut. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. And to hear certain things being said to you day after day after day after day, and regardless of what you're telling yourself, it penetrates. It penetrates into your subconscious. It penetrates into your soul, and it affects your entire being, your entire mental state as a person. Even going back, Doc, where you were speaking about it being difficult in churches when you have to leave. I remember when I had to leave my marriage, I ended up, when I left, with a nervous breakdown. And one of the reasons was that it was difficult because there were persons in church who stopped talking to me. There were so many who were telling me that I was wrong. And then I had to deal with the fact that growing up within church, you are already convinced, and you already have the mindset that you are in this for life and you are leaving, and you have to fight with yourself. And hence the reason why we have to talk towards these things, what it is, what is really the background of this abuse that is taking place, because emotional abuse is a hell of a thing.
Yeah. It really
what
is,
I
because
find,
it's not seen. Sorry, go ahead.
What I find that works for me now is telling that person that doesn't have control over their temper, when you talk to me like that, I'm going to leave and I'm not going to engage. And you set a boundary.
Yep.
It causes a shift, because what we allow, that's why it happens. We allow it to happen.
Yeah.
The victim has to just move out of the way and just leave. Let that person calm down and leave, and say, I'm not going to engage with you.
Yeah.
But here's my question, though.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to leave? How many years do you have to leave and go back? Is it a healthy thing? I guess this question is for Doc. Is it a healthy thing to constantly leave and go back? I mean, if the abuser know that you're going to come back anyway, does it give them any kind of incentive to change their attitude?
Okay, it's a very valid point. I think that what we what we're hearing is that you need to push back. You need to push back against abuse. Now, you must remember that abuse, we tend to look at the outcome, or in other words, we tend to look at abuse or what we see. In other words, that's why physical abuse gets so much prominence, because it's visual. You can see a bruised eye, a busted lip, or something. You can see it. So we tend to respond or react to the physical abuse. But as you quite rightly said, the verbal abuse, the psychological abuse, it doesn't have a physical manifestation, but it eats you from the inside. So the damage is done internally. It softens you up. It makes you vulnerable. It makes you weak spirited. It makes you feel insecure and fearful, you know? So that's happening on the inside. But if you get your voice, and it takes a while to get your voice, then you have to speak. You have to let the person know this is not acceptable. And here's the thing: when you speak to your children, do you scream and shout? Do you raise your voice at them? Because and the reason, I'll tell you why I'm saying all this. Because if you bring up your children and your communication style is one of screaming and shouting and, hey, get that, I told you so, and that sort of thing, then they in turn, now they don't like it. Kids don't like you to shout and scream at them. They don't like it. But you do it because you're the parent. And you know, and children are supposed to do what they are told. But guess what? The man in your life also views you as someone you must do what you're told also. So he screams and shouts at you, okay? Because he wants you to do as you're told. Now, so you can't leave and go all the time like that. But you need to push back. You need to let the person know that the behavior is not acceptable, and that you are not going to be acquiescing and giving him his benefit. Do you know? Let me give you a story. A couple of years ago, a couple came to see me, and so the lady was complaining about his infidelity and a whole lot of other things that was quite long standing. And anyway, she didn't complain about his infidelity openly. She did it gradually. And but in the first meeting, he said to me, "Look, I don't have a problem, you know. She has a problem. So she came to you. She has a problem. So you need to be talking to her. You don't need to be. I don't need to be here." And I said to him, "Yeah, I agree with you. I agree that she has a problem, and I agree that you don't have a problem." And he was like, "Oh, so this guy is on my side." So I said to him, "By the way, are you in a relationship with her? Do you all have a relationship?" He said, yeah, we have a relationship." I said, "Ben, then would you say that the relationship has a problem?" You didn't see it from that perspective. Because you see, because she has the problem, he doesn't have the problem. So as far as he's concerned, she's a problem. But when I said the relationship, is the relationship going the way you would like it? No, she's miserable. I said, okay, does her miserableness make you happy? No. So I said the relationship has a problem. So would you like the relationship to improve? Of course. I said, okay. So you need to be part of the solution. You need to be part of the solution to improve the relationship. So I stopped talking about the marriage. So let's work on relationships. Let's work on the relationship. Let's see how we can improve this relationship. You know? And then you give him little homework to do, that he can manage, the little things that he can do, and you give her little things that she could say to compliment him when he does the things that he's been told to do, and so on. Slowly, 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 and they're happy forever and a day. So you have to sometimes unmask the man differently, because you can't deface him and bring him down in the presence of his spouse, because that you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to know how to get him to realize that the relationship is not running optimally. Or sometimes you have to say, but tell me, did you all ever had any good times in a relationship? Yeah, so tell me about those times when you had that are really nice and memorable. What happened to those times? What went wrong? And then you find out that something happened long, long ago and it was never fixed and stuff like that. And vice versa. So but when I agree that you have to push back, you have to say, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. And then sometimes, listen, ladies, you possess
Okay.
pleasure centers. And you just have to say, I'm sorry, not tonight. I don't feel up to it. you know, you,
No, we
you
won't.
you have to be strategic. You have to be strategic. You have to be strategic.
You're funny. That's
I-
awesome.
Yeah,
yeah,
you can always have a headache.
I-
You can always have a headache.
but Doc, even that can be complicated. Again, I was have as the discussion that I was having yesterday where we were talking, and this person was abused, and they were abused by their father, and the
Yes.
father's reason was that he wasn't getting it from the mother, so he
Oh
turned
dear.
to his children.
Oh dear.
So how do you tell a person now who is coming from an abusive situation
Wow.
and is living in an abusive situation that it is a good thing to withhold sexual favors?
But you see, here's the thing. There is no right and wrong answer. You have listen. If a person, and you see, this is the point that man was making to me. He didn't have any problems because
Mm-hmm.
the bed sorted out all his problems. Okay,
Okay.
and once he could
Mm-hmm.
get gratification from her, he ain't got no problem. You get the point.
Mm-hmm.
And because she
Mm-hmm.
felt afraid and she felt that she didn't have, he owned her, he possessed her body was his. It doesn't work like that. Your body is not my body. It's not his body. It's your body. You get the point. So you need to push back. You need to push back. You cannot be afraid of what might happen if you push back. Like if you say, like as you were just saying, if you say to him, I'm sorry, you can't speak to me like that. If you're afraid that you might get a slap, then you'll never say that. You get the point. But he will begin to realize, hey, this lady is not corporate. She's not like she used to be. Something is taking place here. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to? Because something is going on because you're not acquiescing like you used to. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to push back, my dear. You can't be afraid to do that because you lose yourself entirely if you don't have some inner strength to push
Mm-hmm.
back against things that are happening to you on a continuous basis. That is
And
that is my view.
the thing about it is that the children still get hurt anyway. We
Yeah,
are
but
afraid that the children will be hurt, and they still get when we submit ourselves to abuse, our children get hurt anyway.
yeah, that's the time. That's the point. That
Mhm.
is the point. So like but I think that we need sometimes to shift from the physical abuse and talk about all the pain and hurt and suffering that occurs from words that are designed to disempower you as a woman. All the words that tend to undermine your integrity, all the words that attend, and they're deliberate to bring you down to a manageable quantity. You know, no man wants to have a wife who can say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept that. I can't speak. No, he feels that you're being rude or something, but you have, because if you're not able to say that, well, heaven help you. You know, you're still gonna get, he's gonna control, because it's about control. It's about control. That's it.
Yep.
It's about control. The fundamental principle
It is.
of abusive behavior
It
is control.
Uh,
That's the
which
that's the
brings me back to the question that I had asked before. We cannot go into it at present because it's past the hour. But insecurity, and
yeah.
the truth is, the insecurity that caused that individual to feel that they need to be in control. You know,
Yes.
uh, I really want us, I really, really want us to go into the mind of an abuser. The reason for it being is that a lot of us are bringing up our children in environments uh, that is conducive to bringing up abusers. And we don't recognize it. We do not recognize it. And if we can go into really get into the mind of an abuser, there are so many different things. Yes, there are so many layers. We know that there are so many, but we have to start breaking them down, because it's the only way we can actually get to the heart of the problem. I know that even with leaving my marriage, the thing that gave me the strength to get up and get out was my children. I know whatever I kept them in, that is what they were going to live. And even though it was a very difficult decision, I had to do it not only for myself, but my children. And so we have so many, okay, even we touch on bullying. We have parents who believe that they have to be in control so much that they bully their children. And they don't even realize that they are bullying their children. And this is what actually helps their children to become bullies. And then there are males who believe that the children are supposed, the boys especially, are supposed to grow up tough and manly. And they do the boy children, so much different wickedness. They pass, they tap them. They do them all different kind of manner of wickedness and evil, believing that they are growing them up in the manly way so that they can face the world in a rough and a tough manner. And actually, what the children do, they go out there and they bully others also. So we want to continue this conversation, because we
Okay.
really, really need to dive in
Okay.
deep within the minds of the abusers, but we have to
Right.
continue it another night because it's
Okay.
past.
I'll speak to that.
I know that Doc, you made the sacrifice to be with us tonight, and Joanna, and I am so happy that you all made that decision to come on with us tonight so that you can bring to light a lot of things that is taking place that we need to address. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And we will continue this conversation on a next Tuesday. It was
Okay.
our pleasure
And it's
speaking
so
with
nice
you.
meeting you, Joanne. A pleasure.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Doctor. Nice
Thank
to meet
you.
you. Thank you so much for your
Okay.
stories. I can relate
Okay.
in
Good,
all
good.
of them.
All right.
Thank you.
Uh,
Have a nice evening.
Thank you,
Okay.
Beverly.
Bye-bye.
you're welcome. It was my pleasure having you here this evening.
And it helps me
It
as
was our
it helps me as a child of an abuser. Yeah.
we'll you stay on, don't go off. Let me just close off.
Oh, no problem.
So
Have a good night.
yeah, you don't go off. Don't go off.
I won't.
All right. Bye, Crystal James. Thank you for looking on through the whole entire program. It was lovely having you on. It was lovely having your
Yes.
comments. And anyone else who was looking at this program, we are thankful for your support, your continued support. We usually give you our information, but we would come on a little later, or maybe tomorrow, please God, and give you the information that you need. We just want to say tonight, or whatever time it is where it was a lovely time with you, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a wonderful evening, Beverly.